Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of your PA Dutch Minute. The other day I was scrolling on Facebook, probably like many of you do too, and I came across a post that at first um, I didn't think much about. But then after I kind of did start, well, I started thinking about it and I thought this might be a really good topic for a video. And after thinking a little bit more, doing a little brainstorming, son of a gun, I said, yes, this is something we have to tackle. So it's kind of a different, I'm not here to teach you anything today, Pennsylvania Dutch related. However, I do think the topic is something that a lot of my viewers, particularly my more senior viewers, we'll say it that way, maybe will really connect with. So without further ado, let me bring something into the screen here. Hopefully you can all see that. I'm sure you can. So while scrolling on Facebook the other day, in a group that if you don't belong to, you should if you're on Facebook, called Pennsylvania Dutch and Proud, somebody posted this message. Making my meadow tea today and sad. I'm not passing this on to anyone. My daughter has no interest. Couldn't wait to leave and go to a university. She's a wonderful mother to her boys, but it's all about their sports, and she hates to cook. LOL. I have three granddaughters. They are in the area, but an hour to and back. One has picked up her dad's garden and canning. The other two, they have moved on to their own interests. I want to pass down my culture and my knowledge. How can we do this? So when we think about this message, there's a couple things at play here. We have somebody who has what they feel information or knowledge about themselves, about maybe how they grew up, about their Pennsylvania Dutch identity, their Pennsylvania Dutch culture. In this case, a specific food, meadow tea, which if you've never had, you have to try. My goodness, it's delicious, especially in the summer. And the problem that this person is running into is that they have this knowledge and they want to pass it on, but nobody seems interested. How do they go about doing that? That's what really got me thinking. And I know that there are people watching this video that probably are in the same boat. They grew up, maybe they learned the language, maybe they didn't learn the language, but we'll take the language out of it. Let's think about recipes, so food ways, and other cultural traditions and things like this that maybe they grew up with in an era that was very different from today, and they have this knowledge and they want to pass it on to somebody else to keep it alive. But sometimes you run into the problem of the people that you want to pass this information on, they aren't interested, and that's really hard. It's difficult. And I was thinking a lot about this. What could I tell somebody that is in this boat? They have this information, they want to share it, but there's nobody really out there listening to them, or they feel like there's no one out there listening to them. So I came up with a couple of points to talk about today real quick in this video. So if you're in this situation, or if you know someone that's in this situation, please share these ideas with them or send them the video link. And hopefully my ideas can help them in this struggle. And it's a difficult situation to be put in because you feel like you really want to do something, but you also feel at the same time like you can't. So let's help this person out and anybody else out there that might feel that they're in the same situation. Here's tip number one from me, someone that does this for a living, that tries to pass on a culture, a language, history to whoever wants to listen to it. Number one, tell whoever you are trying to impart this knowledge to how important it is to you. And that might seem like, well, then it sounds like I'm bragging. No, 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 no. I'm not saying that. Tell them, sit them down, or even if it's just talking face to face and say, hey, I learned how to do X as a kid, whether it's how to make a certain kind of cake that your grandmother taught you, or in this case, this meadow tea recipe. And I know you might not be interested in learning it, but this is something that is really important to me. And I think when you say that to somebody, their reaction is going to be a little different than if you say, hey, let me tell you about X. Because when someone hears that you find this important, hopefully it feels like they also will want to invest a little bit in this situation. So, number one, I would simply say, this is something that's really important to me. I think most of you can tell who watch my videos and subscribe to my channel that what I do is, in Pennsylvania Dutch culture and identity and history and language, it is important to me. I hope that comes through in my videos, and hopefully that makes you want to engage more. And maybe that's my thought process here. If you tell someone, "Hey, this is really important to me," They will maybe listen a little bit closer than what they had in the past. Tip number 2, and this is the hardest one, especially for me too. Don't force it on them. And I'll tell you a little anecdote. So as you all know, I'm musical and I love to play and I love to sing. And when my wife and I started having children, I had this grand dream that we were going to be creating a family band because my wife is also a singer. I'd play an instrument and sing, my wife would sing, and then our children would each learn an instrument and sing. I even had in my mind picked out what instrument each of them was going to play. My daughter was going to be this awesome fiddle player, my son was going to take banjo. We were going to be this happy Partridge Family style band. And it didn't work out that way. And yes, that was hard for me. And I'm still kind of accepting that process. And the process isn't done. But I share this story because, uh, and I'm guilty of this. And my wife has told me, and continues to tell me sometimes that I'd really like, for the example of my daughter and the fiddle. I, I to a certain extent forced that on her. And bless her heart, she went along for the ride for a little bit. But then eventually she said, Dottie, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was really hard for me. And I'm sure I felt that position like the person earlier that we're talking about here who wants to pass this information on but can't because they don't want to listen. And it's important to remember that, and I'm learning this. I'm learning this in real time, everybody. You can't force this on anybody. You can't force your culture. You can't force your language. If people want to learn about it, they will engage. Just keep putting it out there, but don't force on them. If you force it on them, it's often a turn off, and then you're going to maybe do more damage than what you originally had expected or was already there. Okay, so there's tip number 2. Don't force any of this stuff on anybody. Put it out there, and hopefully it's like fishing. Throw the hook out, and hopefully a fish will bite. Number 3, the easiest thing I think anybody can do, especially in the situation of this person, is you have these recipes or these stories in your mind. Write them down. And yes, this is also difficult for a lot of humans to think about. Maybe nobody wants to hear you now while you're while you're alive and they don't want to learn this stuff from you. But once you've passed away, if it's not written down, it's lost. I don't remember. There's a culture, and I'm not sure which culture it is, but they have this quote that says, "Whenever somebody dies, a library of knowledge dies too." And I really like that line. I wish I could remember it's I don't remember what culture said that, but there's a culture out there that has that essentially that idiom, that phrase. And I agree with that. But if you write things down, then it lasts, right? One of my favorite possessions or prized possessions, I guess I should say, and all the things that I own is a folder full of my grandmother's handwritten recipes. A lot of these old Pennsylvania Dutch recipes, she taught me how to cook them and bake them, but she also wrote them all down and I have them so that when she passed away, that knowledge was passed on. And I can then hand that folder of recipes to anybody. I can photocopy them. I could type them out and pass them on to anybody so that that tradition, those recipes, those stories continue on. This is a really important fact. And you might, at the time, maybe nobody wants to read it, but trust me, after you're gone, there will be people out there that will want to read this, that will want to try these recipes. They'll think, oh man, my grandmother used to make the most delicious red velvet cake at Christmas time. How did she make it? Oh, here's the recipe. I can try. It might not turn out exactly the same, but it's a lot better than not having anything at all. So, tip number 3, write things down. Tip number 4, and this is super easy these days, create an oral history. If you have a smartphone, you have a voice recorder function on that, whether it's an iPhone or Android or Google or whatever. Simply record yourself telling stories from your childhood, from about your parents, about your grandparents. Again, it's very much like tip number 3. Maybe nobody right now wants to hear this stuff, but maybe a generation removed from you later on, maybe your grandchildren or your great grandchildren, who maybe you never meet, they will be able to hear your voice and hear these stories. And you again are passing this tradition on. It's super easy to do. And if you feel like you're not very tech savvy, then get one of your grandchildren or your children. And here's where you can get them involved and say, hey, I'd like to record some of my stories. Could you help me? And maybe they'll see it from, oh, I get to help grandma or mom do the tech aspect of recording these stories. And while they're hearing you record them, maybe that'll pique interest. But again, it's also this, you're creating something for posterity, for the future, and you're getting these stories out. I wish I had done more of this with my grandparents before they passed away. I did some of it. I have recordings of them and I asked them questions. So I have their voices, but I wish I had done more. Of course, nowadays with the technology we have, I could go crazy. But sadly, they're no longer with us. So do these things now while you can. It's easy to do. It's never been easier to do an oral history with anybody. So that's another tip for me to share with you guys. Tip number 5. Someone also shared this on this Facebook thread. You have a wealth of knowledge about whatever, cooking, baking, gardening, Pennsylvania Dutch traditions of some kind. Take your knowledge and use it. Volunteer at a cultural historical event. You guys know, if you follow me on social media, I am always posting Pennsylvania Dutch themed events that are out there, whether it's like the Kutztown Folk Festival or the historic Schaefferstown's Cherry Fair or Pennsylvania Dutch Days at this place or that place. There are the Sammaloft in Bethel. There are all these events out there, and they always are looking for people to help. That is an avenue, a forum, a place for you to go and share your knowledge with somebody else. Now, you might not be related to them, but that's okay. You're still passing traditions on, stories on, recipes on to somebody else. And like I said, most of these events are always looking for people to help. And it'll put you with other people like you, and you'll probably have a great time doing it. A good friend of mine in the channels, Terry Berger, he has a wealth of knowledge about Pennsylvania Dutch cooking, traditional Pennsylvania Dutch cooking. And he is at a lot of these events demonstrating, making these recipes, and having people taste the food. Can you imagine the impact that he's having and passing these things on? And yeah, he's not getting paid to do this, but he's paying back. I always think of it this way. He's taking this knowledge that he was given and giving it back to the community. So that's another option. Number 6, this is the easiest one out of all of them. Don't stop talking about it. Again, we got to think back to number 2. Don't force it on people. But if there are opportunities where you can talk to somebody about this stuff or share your knowledge, do it. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't feel like nobody wants to listen. There are people out there that do want to listen to you. So don't stop talking about it. And number 7, join in online communities with like-minded people. This is another easy one. If you're on Facebook, for example, there are multiple Pennsylvania Dutch themed groups on Facebook. There's one that just deals with recipes, for example. It's going to put you in contact with other people that have the same interests as you. You're able to share your knowledge. You're able to learn from other people as well. And it'll give you a sense of community. Yes, it's a digital community. You might never meet some of these people face to face, but you are still able to be into contact with people like you, sharing knowledge, gaining knowledge, and it's all by clicking a mouse. You can't get any easier than that these days. So what I also want to remind people is, just because life isn't the same as it was doesn't mean that it's dead. I think a lot of times we wax nostalgically as Pennsylvania Dutch about growing up on life on the farm and how idyllic it was. And for a lot of us who had that opportunity, it was. And maybe now you don't have the farm anymore. Maybe now, your generation or your children's generation didn't want to farm and they moved on. They went to college, they got another job, they moved away. And just because that lifestyle is no longer a physical or actual aspect of your life doesn't mean that it's dead. And that's where you can take this knowledge and pass it on to other people. Again, maybe not everybody wants to listen to you. Okay, I get it. But there are opportunities for you to pass it on. Don't think that just because it isn't just don't think because people aren't listening or because life is different than it was 30, 40 years ago that it's gone, because it isn't. You're watching this YouTube channel. There are people out there doing Pennsylvania Dutch stuff to keep the traditions, to keep the history, keep the language alive. And it is alive. It is very much alive. It is not where it was 30 years ago. I get that. The number of speakers are no longer there. There's a lot more multiculturalism, which is a good thing, but we're not dead. So as long as we keep talking about it, we do things like oral histories, we volunteer at cultural and historical events, we are passing our knowledge on. And there are people out there that want to hear how you make that meadow tea or what meadow tea is. Trust me, maybe it's not your daughter and maybe it's not your grandkids. It's not the end of the world. There are people out there that do want to hear those things. And like many people in that Facebook thread said, write it down, because after you're gone, people will want to hear it. You don't get the satisfaction of telling them face to face. I get that, and that's difficult. However, know that if you have it written down, if you have it recorded, it does get passed on to some future generation that will be very, very, very appreciative that you did it when you were alive. So there's some tips for you guys if you feel that you're in the same boat as the person was in this original Facebook post. I'm going to keep doing the videos and keep doing the content on social media because that's my way of giving back and passing knowledge and information on. And I haven't given up totally on my daughter being a fiddle player. I'm not putting as much pressure on her. So for the record, we still might have that dream of the Maidenford family band someday. The kids are still young. I'm not giving up on that. But that number 2 point, don't force it on somebody. It's a tough one to learn, but once you learn it, it has helped me a little bit in my in my personal struggles with this topic. Hey, if you like what we're doing here on the channel, please, and you'd like to support us financially, buy me a coffee. You can visit the website buymeacoffee.com/Doug Maidenford, and all money raised through that campaign will go right back into the channel, whether it's helping to pay for new equipment or subscriptions that I have to have, like StreamYard, which I use to create these videos. That's what the money gets used for. It's not used for anything other than stuff related to the channel and our brand, PA Dutch 101. I love talking with you guys as often as I can, and I love passing this knowledge on. I hope that the stuff that I shared with you today is helpful if you're in that boat. In the comment section down below, if you have an idea, like one of my 7 that I didn't list, put it in there. How have you dealt with this if you've been in that situation? Or if you're currently in that situation, what are you doing to alleviate and help get your knowledge out? Share. Let's keep the conversation going in the comment sections down below, either on Facebook, on Twitter, or here on the YouTube channel. Till next time, dear friends, keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch, pass that knowledge on, and Max gut.
Max gut.